Bart here, and welcome to my 500 subscriber special! Yep, I have reached over 500 subscribers on my YouTube channel. That is, it happened a few months ago, but I didn't do a special video on time due to the other projects I had, but who cares? In celebration of this occasion, I decided to review a movie that is the most requested. And judging by the comment section I looked up, the one movie that got the most votes is a film that I never seen before. Of course, I heard this movie was one of the worst animated films to have ever come out, but come on, that's gotta be an exaggeration. I mean, it's got well-known stars voicing the characters, it's got classic food mascots, and there's gotta be some creativity about it. I mean, how bad could it possibly be? Okay. From what I observed, it is bad. But, is it really the worst? Well, let's find out by taking a look at the grocery store equivalent to Wreck-It Ralph, FoodFight. In a grocery store, known as Marketopolis Market, the store turns into a metropolis overnight, where the store brand icons, or Ikes as they're called, get to roam free. As an Ike for cereal, named Dex Dogtective, is about to ask another Ike named Sunshine Goodness, who represents a raisin product, to marry him. But soon Sunshine goes missing, and after 6 months of not finding her, Dex retires from his detective work as he runs an establishment called the Coca Banana, the local bar for all Ikes. But then a company called Brand X arrives at the store, where Mr. Clipboard brings in Brand X products. As one of the Ikes representing Brand X, named Lady X, is trying to be a replacement for Sunshine, and wants Dex as her own. Yet a mystery begins to take place, as Ikes are being rubbed out and replaced with Brand X products. And Dex, along with his friend Daredevil Dan, a squirrel representing a chocolate product, try to solve the case of who's killing off the Ikes and replacing them with Brand X products. As well as finding out who took Sunshine Goodness and why. Now the history behind this film is pretty interesting and it's more fun to explore than the movie itself. But since this is a review channel, I'll try to explain both, because where I find the film to be boring, forgettable, and unfunny, it's not really the worst in my opinion. It's just bad. For starters, the animation is bad, but I feel it's dated and unfocused. But I wouldn't necessarily blame the makers for this, as the first trailer to the movie had a slightly better quality, showing that Sunshine had a tail, some of the original footage in comparison to what now is slightly detailed, and even Chester Cheetah was going to be in it. But someone has stolen most of the original footage, resulting in a 9-year gap, including issues with getting permission for the brand mascots, ending with about 80 to 90% of the animation being motion capture. Keep in mind, the original budget for the movie was $65 million, and originally slated for a 2003 Christmas release. So somewhere within that 9-year gap, something must have happened to bring this project back, because there's no kind of update or improvement, and it really shows in the animation, whether or not the budget's still the same within those 9 years. Like I said, it's mostly motion capture, but it's motion capture done wrong. The characters move in very awkward positions, the mouths sometimes don't move with what a character is saying, and there are instances when the characters have no expressions, aren't looking at one another, or have creepy looks. There's moments when the animation repeats itself 2 or 3 times, moments that aren't paced right, or take too long to finish, and stuff that occurs in the store during the daytime like how gravity works or Dex typing aren't really registered very well. And if you think Mr. Clipboard's movements are way too unbalanced than the rest of the characters, there is a reason why that is at the end, and it kind of makes sense. Keyword being, kind of. Even the way the store is done is pretty confusing. In something like Wreck-It Ralph, which came out months later, the video game characters exist in their own video games, and their hub world is inside a surge protector, where nobody ever sees them and it's established what happens if a character enters a different game. Here the characters live in an alternate version of the store at night. And when Dex and Dan go out during the day, the humans didn't care what's going on, and the two also crash into a frozen section where a new world is open. Like, where did this come from? At least with Sausage Party, it was only the foods interacting, and to the humans, they're just food. I mean, why couldn't this be similar to those Warner Brother cartoons like Have You Got Any Castles, Goofy Grocery, Speaking of the Weather, and Your Own Education, where the characters of those products come to life, and they were at least grounded in a way that makes sense, even if they have a similar plot and narrative. And they did it with not just groceries, but with books, magazines, and VHSs. But this film goes with its own thing, which isn't a bad idea, yet it makes little to no sense and has nothing to start off with. The dialogue is usually about 60 to maybe 75% of nothing but either food puns or innuendos. Even the movie posters in Dex's office are food-related titles. Speaking of movie references, not only is Wreck-It Ralph and Sausage Party mentioned, but there's also references of Casablanca, with Dex, General X, and the Cocoa Banana, with an anthem sent to the tune of the French national anthem. The Brand X Tower looks like the top of Spook Central from Ghostbusters, and there's even elements of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, not just with the character cameos, but also with Lady X, looking and acting like a Jessica Rabbit wannabe, yet wears a different outfit every time she comes back. And even Mr. Clipboard is a bizarro mix of Judge Doom's Toon form with Doc Brown's hair, coincidentally since the actor plays all three roles. Even the textures aren't rendered well and a few bits of continuity errors going on. All the jokes don't work, especially the farts and butts, and some points don't make sense. Like 1 minute Sunshine goes to help Dan in a plane crash, but then she's gone hours later. Like, did nobody see her being taken away, or where did she leave off to? And this happens before 6 months goes by. And Dex's motto is always, the secret's inside. Like, what does that even mean? But there are one or two things that I like about this film, and one is seeing the product mascots. Even if I don't know them all or had their products, they are recognizable. Mr. Clean, Charlie the Tuna, the California Raisins, Mrs. Buttersworth, and Twinkie the Kid. And there are a few mascots that are trying to be the mascots, but they aren't the mascots because they didn't get the rights to the mascots, like the Keebler Elves and Chiquita Banana. But the one major downside to them is that they're just background characters, with only occasionally helping out in the food fight at the end. But that's just it. Yet the new product mascots don't have much to work with. There's a Fox character working with Lady X, yet he wasn't with Brand X originally and works with Dex, but goes back and forth between them, and really, what's the purpose of this character? There's a penguin character whose one joke is that he's always cold, there's a scientist with a giant nose, a weasel who's like from the black market, a pirate representing a chip product, a Count Chocula knockoff that has too much of a likeness for Dan, a figure named Blue representing IBM, which is the same tech used to make the film, a French soldier representing a cheese product, and many more. All of them are pretty uninteresting and awkward. And most of the background characters look like humans, so what's the point of them? They don't look like they come from any product. Yet the other thing I like, and is a major highlight for me, is the songs and music. Some of it is good and kind of catchy. I really do enjoy them more than the rest of the film, which was finished and distributed by an insurance company. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And despite an all-star cast voicing the characters, they don't really add a lot. Charlie Sheen voices Dex Dog Detective, Eva Longoria Parker voices Lady X, Hilary Duff voices Sunshine Goodness, Wayne Brady voices Daredevil Dan, Christopher Lloyd voices Mr. Clipboard, Chris Kattan voices Polar Penguin, Larry Miller voices Lad Tricole, Ed Asner voices Mr. Leonard, Jerry Stiller voices General X, in a Tim Curry impression, Lawrence Kasanoff voices Chisel T. Weasel, Harvey Fierstein voices Fat Cat Burglar, Cloris Leachman voices Brand X Lunch Lady, Haley Duff voices Sweet Cakes, Jeff Bergman voices Charlie the Tuna, Jeff Bennett voices Lieutenant X, Robert Costanzo voices Maximilius Moose, Greg Ellis voices Harry Hold, Eddie McClurg voices Mrs. Buttersworth, Shelley Morrison voices Lola Flutilla, Christine Baranski voices Hita Shopper, and Whittel voices Kun Tu Fu, and James Arnold Taylor voices Dr. C. Nostrix. As a whole, this movie is boring, forgettable, and lame. The characters are weak, the story is forgettable, and the animation is bad, but pretty unfocused. Director Lawrence Kasanoff had made a film that felt like a bunch of nothing, and it's easily forgettable. Sure, the dialogue is mostly of food puns and innuendos, the cameos of the food mascots are pointless, and the animation quality isn't that great, but compared to all the other films I've seen, even with similar standards, it's not really the worst. It's just very bland, boring, and forgettable that it's hard to find words for it, and honestly, it's just a run-of-the-mill kind of bad. I mean, I could see what the makers are trying to do, especially given its history, but the movie's lackness of its animation, characters, and story just made the backstory and comparison to other films more interesting. So overall, it is bad, but in a very boring and forgettable way. So today, this movie began a rating of 2 stars. Well, that is it for my 500 subscriber video. And tune in next week when I start my new special month. Although somehow, I don't know what to review for next week. What could it be? Wait a minute. I forgot another movie reference in this film. This detective looks like